Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Deal. College football playoff semifinals. They're set. This is the second to last game preview that we're doing all year. Notre Dame, Penn State. What fascinates me most about this matchup, very similar teams in terms of how they want to win football games. You're looking at two of the best defenses that you see in the country, two of the best rushing attacks that you see in the country. Both of these teams want to run the football well, and play good defense. And to me, it kind of comes down to, all right, who's going to execute that game plan better Thursday night? That's going to be the answer. Fired up to get into this one. A lot of kind of intriguing storylines and matchups heading in. Now, before we get into it, as always, many of y'all have been rocking with the fellas for a real long time, especially as we've cranked out a lot of these game previews. It's been a blast for the boys all year. The amount of support y'all continue to show means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Many of y'all already know this, but let it fly in the comment section. I don't think we necessarily agree on this football game, so we're going to get into it a little bit as well. Dill, without further ado, I want to start off with, to me, what's the most intriguing storyline in this football game, and that is this Penn State offense versus this Notre Dame defense. I could tell you how Notre Dame's going to approach this game. It's going to be very similar to how they approached it against Georgia. Hey, we don't think your pass catchers on the outside are better than our defensive backs. We know you want to run the football. We're going to walk a safety into the box. We're going to show big-time numbers in the box, leave our defensive backs on islands, and we're going to challenge you to win vertically down the field playing man coverage. The X factor in this football game, though, is Georgia didn't really have a guy to win one-on-ones. Penn State does. Now, it's not an outside wide receiver. It's tight end Tyler Warren, but he's a guy that you haven't really seen anybody be able to take away to start throughout the 2024 season. Notre Dame's going to play man coverage. Tyler Warren is going to have opportunities to make an impact on this football game. How do you see that matchup playing out here?
And that's the really interesting battle, because I look at the way like guys like Adnan Schuler, Jack Kaiser, Drake Bowen, and Jalen Sneed kind of dealt with the Georgia tight ends. Really, really effective. I think there were a couple plays that Delp got to, one penalty, but aside from that, really kind of put the clamps on those guys. Now, again, those Georgia tight ends are not Tyler Warren. They haven't been as productive as him. He's a unique, special guy, but I look at the physical traits of these linebackers and safeties, especially Adnan Schuler. I think he's going to have a huge part in this game. He's big, physical, athletic guy.
That's the guy that I would project Notre Dame tries to stick on Tyler Warren. Look, they ain't many guys that you find on defense that have the size, the athleticism to deal with Tyler Warren. He is really a unicorn at the tight end spot. What I think is fascinating about this is, hey, if Notre Dame is going to want to play man coverage, you're going to have a guy that deals with Tyler Warren. Schuler, to me, would probably be the guy Notre Dame is using. And I think that's going to be a dynamite matchup. Will Notre Dame give some special treatment to Tyler Warren? Yes, probably. Because I think the large question that we have about Penn State and how good can they be in the college football playoffs, how dangerous can they be is, all right, we know you got Tyler Warren. You feel at some point Penn State is going to need plays from their boundary wide receivers. Who do you see stepping up for Penn State on the outside? Because it does feel like if Penn State wins this football game, it can't just be on the shoulders of Tyler Warren.
And obviously Harrison Wallace does command the lion's share of the targets as that boundary wideout. But I look at a guy like Amari Evans, and he's shown some flashes. Now, it's not been consistent enough. He hasn't made enough plays, but you see the Minnesota game, you see the touchdown against Oregon, you see the play made against Boise State. He at least does, if he gets a good matchup on a safety or a nickel or a slot corner, a guy who I do think can get down the field, take the top off the defense, and be really dangerous. And that's the one thing that Penn State hasn't shown a ton of prolificness, if you will, in the last couple of years, but they are starting to show a little bit more.
Well, that's the difference. That's the difference. They have a vertical passing attack in 2024 with Coach Kolnicki that they just didn't have previous years. Look, Penn State's been the same team over the last couple of years as what you see now. I think the real difference is, one, Drew is playing at another level, and Coach Kolnicki has revolutionized this offense. I'm kind of with you with Amari Evans. I feel like he plays a massive role in this football game, and it's not because he's going to have 10 catches for 200 yards, but these explosive plays and just points in general are going to be at a premium in this football game. Can Amari Evans find that game-changing play with that long speed working vertically? That's the question.
And
Again,
that's where it gets into Kolnicki's hands a little bit in terms of getting a matchup. Because I don't think he's like a great shot to beat a Christian Gray or a Leonard Moore. Like those guys are playing nails football right now. Can they get him on a matchup against a safety or a slot or something where he has a chance to make something happen? Because again, I just don't see him beating those boundary cornerbacks.
But see, I probably disagree because he's only got to do it once. I don't see him beating them consistently. He's just got to get it once. A good release with that vertical speed. If they're going to go single high safety, can you hit that 1 or 2 times in this game? That I think can determine the outcome. Because again, the points are going to be at a premium. The last thing I'm looking at here, and that is Coach Kolnicki's got to scheme it up a little bit. I thought he got, and I think Penn State fans will probably agree with this against Boise State, probably got a little bit too cute. He probably didn't need to do that much scheming against Boise State because you were just running the football all over them. Look, I think Penn State can run the football here. I would be very surprised if they ran the football all over Notre Dame that has one of the best front seven stopping the run that we see in the country. Notre Dame's going to play man coverage. They've been doing it all year. I'm guessing it's going to be just with the single high safety because they want to put another body in the box to stop the run. Can you get – and this is something I thought Georgia did a horrible job of. Look, you knew your wide receivers ain't that good. You got to give them some help. And I just felt like Mike Bobo and Georgia didn't give them enough help. Coach Kolnicki's a guy that'll give his wide receivers help. And so can you get some rub routes? Can you get some shallow crosses? Can you facilitate with your play calling opportunities for your wide receivers to win in man coverage? Because if you don't give them help, I'm kind of with you. It's hard to see these Penn State wide receivers consistently creating separation and winning against these Notre Dame cornerbacks. But if you do give them help and you know they're going to play man coverage, that's probably where you can really help your wide receivers create some explosive plays in this football game.
And again, when you only need one, because I look, like you kind of said it, like this is probably to me going to be like 20 points might be enough to win this game.
I agree.
You only need one. And then again, that is what's made Penn State legitimately dangerous. And they've always been good, but now they have an offensive coordinator who's willing to be a little bit more creative, take some more risks, and put his guys in a position once or twice a game to really make something explosive happen against the good teams that they need to beat.
Last thing I'll note is Luke Reynolds at the tight end spot. Now, everyone wants to talk about Tyler Warren. 5-star tight end Luke Reynolds, who's a true freshman. I think they're going to try to get him involved because those are probably the matchups you're trying to attack. I don't think you go into this football game saying our wide receivers are going to beat their defensive backs. You probably got to get a little bit creative in terms of who are your pass catchers, running backs out of the backfield, tight ends. That's kind of what I'm looking for Penn State. Flipping the sides here, Del. This Notre Dame offense, again, I don't think it's a secret what Notre Dame wants to do. They got the number 2 rushing attack in the country. They're averaging, 6.1 yards per carry, number 2 in the country, ludicrous number. It's a really good Penn State front seven. If you were to identify a key to this matchup here, where are you looking at first?
I mean, it probably starts with the aggressiveness that Penn State plays with is a little bit reminiscent, frankly, of how Texas A&M like to play in their front seven with guys who are really slashing, trying to get in gaps, make negative. Yeah. And Penn State obviously has been doing that all year. I look at how special Jeremiah Love is. I don't know that Penn State, and I have all the respect in the world for guys like Jordan James and guys like Travion Henderson and the Ohio State running backs. I'm not sure there's a better running back in the country who's as explosive.
Spicy one.
Hitting as many big plays as Jeremiah Love. And again, you look at what they were able to do, just create a couple creases in that Texas A&M game. They weren't moving the ball up and down the field, but they were able, those linemen in the run scheme are really good at getting up to second level, getting their blocks at that level, and allowing a crease for Jeremiah Love. And when he gets that, he gives you that ability to not make a 20-yard play, but make like an 80-yard play. And that, again, we talk about the plays and what's going to kind of be the driver of this game. It's going to be something like that in my mind. I think Jeremiah Love is about as good as anyone as creating that from the
right. The balance between the negative plays Penn State creates and the explosive plays Notre Dame can find in the rushing attack. Because you're right. I think how I would coin it is a high risk, high reward defense. Like you are going to try to have your defensive linemen get into the backfield. When you create those negative plays, it's awesome. It's what's made Penn State such a dominant defense, not only this year with Tom Allen, but even going back to last year with Mandy Diaz. You haven't really seen that big of a shift. But when you want to do that, you do give the opportunity for running backs to hurt you. And Jeremiah Love is one of those running backs that if you're a safety or linebacker and you take a bad angle on Jeremiah Love, he's going to make you pay. And like you said, not just for 20, it's going 60 to dollars. Yeah, but the negative plays is probably the most important metric here for me. If Notre Dame lives in second and third and long, it's going to be a problem. Because as good as I think their offensive line has been blocking in the run, the pass rush or the pass protection, I should say, for Notre Dame has struggled at times. If you were living in those second and third and longs where there are obvious passing situations and you have Abdul Carter, who sounds like he's going to be healthy for this football game, pinning his ears back and getting after the quarterback, that's going to be a problem. I think the second thing I'm looking for is what the quick game looks like for Riley Leonard. Look, and this is what I love and appreciate most about Coach Denbrock is that we know we are not the most explosive vertical passing attack. It's not where Riley Leonard excels. It's not where our wide receivers excel. But where we do excel, the quick game, getting the football to our playmakers in space and letting them operate after the catch. Guess what? Penn State, because of how aggressive they are, they're going to give you some of the easy access stuff. And so one of the things I'm looking at is, hey, Penn State, if you're going to give Notre Dame that kind of thing, you got to come up and tackle them. Because if you don't, that's where Notre Dame likes to hit their explosive plays. It's not vertically down the field. Riley Leonard's average depth of target's only 7 yards down the field this year. But they can hit explosive plays by getting it to like a guy like Jordan Faison in space and letting him do work. Let's get into the pick here. Notre Dame, Penn State, 1.5 point spread. That's exactly where I put it to. Definition of a pick'em football game. I'll give you the T-box first. Who you got?
I think I'm leaning Penn State because I do think they have the major X factor in Tyler Warren. I feel like they have the counterpunch, I guess is what I'd say. Like you said it, both teams are going to want to run the ball. I'm not sure both teams are going to be able to march on each other.
No.
Like up and down running the
Agreed.
football. I don't think Notre Dame has that guy. Like Mitchell Evans has just since the injury not looked the same. He's not being that dominant player from the tight end spot. So I don't know that you have it at Notre Dame. Tyler Warren's been probably the best tight end in all the country. His ability to make a couple of those plays, extend a couple drives, like keep themselves on the field, especially with Notre Dame defensive line that's beat up a little bit. And Howard Cross, I don't think I really saw him come off the field against Georgia. He is a good enough player to make it work, obviously. But if Penn State can stay on the field a little bit and, again, just cash in a couple of those third and longs or some of those money plays, I think they can do that better than Notre Dame because of Tyler Warren. So I'll go Penn State.
Okay, I don't love the analysis there. So one thing I will say, and I got a problem with it. Without Riley Mills, like Georgia wasn't really able to test the depth of Notre Dame's defensive line because they just couldn't stay on the football field. Can Penn State do that? That's probably something we should have talked about. Penn State wants to sustain drives. They want to stay on the football field. And with Riley Mills out, that depth on the defensive line, I do think can get tested a little bit for Notre Dame. Can Penn State get to that? That's another thing I'm looking at. I'm going to go with Notre Dame. No, look, not always, but right now you're talking about Tyler Warren being that difference maker. Dill, I would argue the biggest difference maker on the football field here is Riley Leonard at quarterback. In these uglier football games, and make no mistake about it, this is going to be an ugly football game from an offense perspective. As a Big Ten fan, I love this kind of game, but it's going to be ugly to the casual college football fan. Riley Leonard makes wine out of water. And who's going to be selected higher in the NFL draft? It's going to be Drew because the traits as an NFL quarterback are better. But in terms of a college football quarterback that I think can make it work in an ugly way in this kind of football game, to me, it's Riley Leonard, and that's why I'm taking him. And I think, secondly, this Notre Dame team's doing everything right. And when it is these rock fight kind of games, special teams, creating turnovers, stealing an extra possession by running your punt team off the football field, that's all going to matter in a big way. It's going to matter more than normal. And I think Notre Dame's been doing that stuff. Give me Notre Dame. This is going to be a really fun one. I have a very hard time seeing this not be a one-score possession game. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.